Scanning for audio.
Welcome to another Tin Dog podcast. Recently, I was asked on Staggering Stories, a rather nice little podcast that's been going for a very long time, run by some very, very nice people. Now, if you don't know it, track it down by typing Staggering Stories into any search engine. I know I've been plugging them for years, and they're all lovely. But I'd like to play the interview now, if you don't mind.
Hello, Michael.
Hello, Michael.
Hello, Michael, or Tinny.
Hello, thank you for having me. See, I was always brought up to be polite.
What godforsaken, ridiculous reason did you have for taking on this project?
Well, let me see. It seemed like a good idea at the time, a bit like most things in life. It kind of seemed like a good idea, sort of. The original Whostrology was just, the original, well, at the time, 200 stories. And what I did was I worked out what happened, and I was kind of sarcastic about each one. I did most of it just off the top of my head. And then I approached David J. Howe over at Telos, and he came back and he went, you know what this needs? This needs to be more like a diary, to be more like an almanac. And he came back, and then we had other ideas about the Chinese version of Whostrology, and it really kind of developed from there. I mean, the whole thing originated by just conversations I would have with my old mate Andy, because every Doctor Who fan likes to know what's on when they were born. I mean, I was born just in time for episode 2 of Sea Devils. He was born, I think, just about the time of Tomb of the Cybermen, and so it kind of evolved from there. Once David said, can you do 365 different readings, and I realised it was 366, I then hit Excel. Oh god, yeah. And I correlated every single date, every single reading of every single episode of Doctor Who, because it wasn't just every story, it was every episode of every story. It had gone from just kind of vaguely remembering 200 bits of sarcasm to throwing myself into 788 bits of television. Well, it was a monumental task, but someone had to do it.
Why do it to yourself, man?
Well, it was hardly a hardship, was it? You have to sit through every single episode of Doctor Who ever. Come on, we've all tried it. Mostly. Yes, some of them don't exist anymore, so I had to track down some retcons and some of those lovely BBC audios and do a bit of research. But I'm a podcaster. Some of us do some research. Actually, that's a lie. Most of us don't do any research. Don't listen to it, listeners. None of us do any research. We all talk off the top of our head and hope no one notices. I was working on a novel at the time, and then construct number 1, or my construct, you know what I mean. We had a child, and in between feeds, I had a chance to catch up on some old Doctor Who's. So I hit the DVDs and the CDs and just kind of started making notes about every single story and every single episode. It took a few years to get through everything, because, real life gets in the way, but I just kept going. Hardly a hardship, really.
Where do you get the inspiration for each of your podcasts from?
Ooh. The inspiration for podcasts? Well, to be honest, I kind of get grumpy if I'm not doing it. But I kind of just go with whatever's coming out in the near future, DVD-wise, or I kind of just give some gut reactions to Big Finish stuff. I carry around a notebook, and whenever I've listened to something or read something or watched something, I just make a few scribbled notes, and then I sort of sit down and go for it. It's weird having a podcast by yourself, because there's no one to bounce off. I guess that's why the podcasts are so short. I haven't got someone going, no, you're completely wrong. I guess that's the listener's job. But inspiration-wise, I just like doing it. If I didn't like doing it, I'd probably stop. But I get such great feedback from everyone, and I've met such nice people. I might as well just keep going. I mean, this year I've been nominated for a European Podcast Award, which is kind of nice. So some people out there must like what I do.
Will you take Real Keith away and dispose of him quietly?
Yeah.
What?
You sound like a dog in heat there.
I'm really sorry, but I can't actually take Real Keith away and dispose of him quietly or even noisily. I think there's some sort of council regulations where I live that would forbid that kind of thing. I would suggest some sort of hazmat team. Or you could ask the head of Pertwee for some mystical advice. Or maybe it's not. I don't know.
Research.
This is that last time, remember the little crisis he had over in the corner? It's becoming a pattern, you pervert.
Research. How difficult did you find it to research this book? Considering some of the episodes don't exist anymore, and I think...
And there are a few days, I believe,
so
which
what?
had pretty much nothing
yeah,
happening on
yeah,
them at all.
yeah.
Yeah, that became a bit of an issue. Like I said, I'd hit Excel and I started writing down when episodes were on, and some days were fantastic. They had Horns of the Nimon and all sorts of different things appearing, stuff you could really rip into and take the mick out of. But then there were dates in the middle of the summer when Doctor Who, apart from in the early years, just wasn't on. It was at that point, after chatting with David again, that he suggested we incorporate the birthdays of famous Doctor Who people. Well, that opened up a whole new kettle of fish, and a massive amount of research again. I had to work out who these people were. After all, I'm no Toby Haydock. I don't know every actor's by name, and I don't know what they've been in. And a lot of people weren't actors, they were writers or musicians, but I did track down as many people as I could from the old and new series. I wanted to make this as in-depth as I could manage, thus making it as future-proof as I could manage. So, with those added to the Excel document and a lot more research, I started filling it in. Most days had somebody on. Most days had a birthday or one story that I could combine and make into something vaguely humorous. Yeah, vaguely humorous is the best way to go. And then I took it from there.
That's interesting.
Which is the most interesting day of the calendar, and which is the least interesting?
Well, it's easiest to answer the least interesting one first. It's actually listed in the book as the least interesting Doctor Who day. I think it's October the 2nd. It's the day before Sidney Newman dragged Waris Hussein and Verity Lambert into a Chinese restaurant and gave them a good talking to and said, could you go away and do it again and do it better this time, because Doctor Who's very important and I love it and everyone else will, and your first pilot just wasn't very good. So it's the day before that happened. So on this day in history, October the 2nd, a Doctor Who reading is basically somebody books a Chinese restaurant. That is the single most obscure Whostrology reading. But the most interesting, well, the one with the most episodes happening, well, it's got to be Christmas Day. All sorts is going on that date, and it's just ridiculous. Let me see, I've got that one in front of me here. December the 25th, episodes shown this day: The Daleks' Master Plan, Episode 7, The Christmas Invasion, Voyage of the Damned, The Next Doctor, The End of Time, and A Christmas Carol. Birthdays: Edward Burnham, 1916, and Georgia Moffat, 1984. The reading: Beware a flying shark. A familiar place may be so polluted you don't recognise it. So raise a drink to your friends. You have an uncontrollable need to spend the entirety of Christmas Day in your pyjamas. So take a deep breath and be thankful for the gift of fruit. Be sure to give someone a hand, and we should be so lucky to avoid insurance fraud, as it is so passé as it might take a giant king to show you who you really are. Make sure today isn't just about resurrection and overeating, as the end is filled with images of family long gone. A new beginning is so very close.
Yeah, which one gave you most joy? Did you chuckle over?
And the one that gives me the most joy? Well, it's the little ones. It's the ones with just one episode appearing on the day. But the best ones by far are the ones with 2 episodes that have nothing whatsoever to do with each other, producing a rather nice little Whostrology reading. But a year after editing the book, it was sent back for me to proofread and do some more additions because more episodes had been on. And I must admit, reading back through it, I did chortle from time to time. Because it isn't just readings, I've got through each and every of the 12 star signs and done those. As well as that, I've created a year of for every single year since Doctor Who came on. So that's 51 readings of the Chinese calendar. And it's all here. It's all in this book. And they made me chortle quite a bit. I mean, for example, 2012, the year of the slow invasion and the sound of 4. Your voice can now be heard for the first time in an age. Despite the best marriage guidance, you may be losing close friends. However, there is still time to visit a Wild West theme park and ride a dinosaur. A voice from the asylum is calling to you as you think you have the power to make a souffle without eggs or flour.
What is the chemical symbol or the chemical formula for ethyl trioxide?
Ethyl trioxide.
Who's she?
She lives up the road.
I thought it would be anatonium, but there you go.
I have absolutely no idea what the chemical formula for that is. Right, I'm sure this is coming to an end, so I'll just say that if anyone wants to know anything about Whostrology, the book, just visit Amazon or Telos or www.whostrology, one word, .com. And everything's there. You can order it left, right and centre, practically anywhere. Thanks very much for having me, and thank you very, very much for podcasting. You do such a brilliant job, and you make it sound easy. I know how much work goes into these things. So anyway, keep the blue light flashing, and, well, be seeing you.
Thank you, Michael. Good luck with the book.
Yes,
Oh, yes.
Good luck, yes.
Thank you, Michael.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Be seeing you. You have been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are copyright of the BBC. No infringement is intended. To contact the show, email tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. To order, or simply find out more about the book Whostrology, the Time Traveller's Almanac, visit whostrology.com. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.
Urgent subspace communication incoming.
On the weekend of the 9th, 10th, 11th of November 2012, there's going to be a Doctor Who convention. In Stockton, there will be Dimensions. This is the grandchild of the old Dimensions on Time conventions. The list of guests is fantastic. Sylvester McCoy, Peter Davison, Fraser Hines, Louise Jameson, Terry Malloy, Bernard Hawley, Nabil Shabang, Roy Holden, John Levine, John Leeson, Spencer Welding, Ian Cullen, Beth Chalmers, Virginia Hay, David Cyberman Banks, Martin Cochrane, Adrian Burgess, Terence Dix, Brian Croucher, Richard Watson, David Richardson, writers Matt Fitton and Mark Wright, Michael Troughton, the Ken Bentley, and of course David J. Howe and Sam Stone, author of those reasonably popular zombie books, all taking place in Stockton. There are tickets still available, and I for one am definitely going, because that's the weekend that I'll be there, able to sign copies of Whostrology. So if you see me there, say hi. Visit the 10th Planet website, and you can book directly through them.
Urgent subspace communication incoming.